I was done being the quiet, dependable employee, so I walked into the office party, stared my boss down, and destroyed her career with just one sentence. Have you ever been so utterly, completely betrayed by someone you poured your heart and soul into supporting? I thought I knew what kindness was, but it took seeing my own father suffer, and a chilling act of corporate theft, for me to realize that sometimes, being nice is just an open invitation for people to walk all over you. For years, that was me. I was that person. The one everyone called when they needed something. Seriously, I'd drop everything to help a friend move. I'd stay late, so late, to finish someone else's project at work. My boss, Diane, she'd text me at 11 p.m., and I'd respond instantly. Cover shifts? Of course. Volunteer for the projects nobody wanted? You bet. I was raised to believe that kindness, true kindness, would always find its way back to you. And for 5 long years at Davidson Media, I lived by that. I was the first one in, the last one out. I helped my colleagues hit their deadlines. I bought coffee for the team when stress levels were through the roof. I even let Diane, my boss, take credit for my ideas during presentations. She'd always say it looked better coming from management. I bought into it. Hook, line, and sinker. Then, last year, my dad got sick. Really sick. When I asked Diane if I could work remotely 2 days a week to drive him to chemo, she sighed. An actual sigh. We really need you in the office, Jennifer, she said, making it sound like an imposition. But I suppose we can make it work for a month or 2. I was so grateful. Grateful. I worked twice as hard on my office days, frantic to make sure nothing, absolutely nothing, fell through the cracks. Dad's treatment was supposed to last 6 months. But after just 3, Diane called me into her office. Her face was set. The remote arrangement, she claimed, wasn't working. The team needed me physically present every day. And besides, she added, it had been long enough. I remember trying to explain, my voice cracking, that Dad was only halfway through. He couldn't drive, he had no one else. She just stared at me. Her silence was deafening, a cold, hard wall. Eventually, I just lowered my eyes and mumbled, I understand. My heart sank. That next week? I burned through my savings hiring drivers for Dad. I was beyond exhausted, constantly worried sick about him, but still, there I was, the first one in the office every morning. Then came the Maxwell project. This was huge. A massive account that could make or break our quarter. I poured everything into it. Weeks of research, crafting the perfect pitch, designing stunning mock-ups. I even missed one of Dad's appointments, a critical one, just to finish it. The day before the presentation, Diane asked to see my materials. I handed over everything, the slides, the detailed research, my personal presentation notes, every single piece of my soul I'd put into it. The next morning, I arrived early, buzzing with excitement, ready to present my work. But when I got to the conference room, it was already full. Diane was there, at the head of the table, showing my slides to the clients. I froze in the doorway. She was using my exact words, my research, my ideas, as if they were her own. Then she saw me. And she smiled. A sickeningly sweet smile. Oh, good, she chirped. Jennifer, can you grab coffee for everyone? We're just getting started. The client, a kind man, turned. He looked genuinely confused. Aren't you presenting this? Before I could even form a word, Diane jumped in. Oh, no, she said, dismissively. This is my project. Jennifer just helped with some research. I got the coffee. I stood in the back of that room, invisible, watching as she was showered with praise for my work. The client loved it. They signed a 3-year contract, the biggest in company history. When the executives came down to congratulate the team, Diane accepted all the praise, every single bit of it. She got a huge bonus. She got a promotion. And me? I got a $50 Starbucks gift card. A $50 gift card. That night, Dad called. He'd fallen trying to get from the taxi to his front door. He'd been lying there for 20 long minutes before a neighbor found him. If I had been there, I kept thinking, if I had just been there. 2 days later, the company held a celebration for the Maxwell deal. Diane was given an award. I stood there, clapping with everyone else, a hollow ache in my chest. Then came the announcement that made everything stop. Diane would now head up a new division created specifically for the Maxwell account. She needed a strong team, she said, and spent 10 minutes rattling off qualities. Then she announced her first hire, Ryan. Ryan, who'd been with the company for 6 months and hadn't contributed a single, solitary thing to the project. I sat there, stunned, as everyone congratulated him. Then Diane looked directly at me. "Jennifer," she said, her voice dripping with expectation, "I need those quarterly reports by end of day. I know you won't let me down." Something inside me just snapped. 5 years. 5 agonizing years of saying yes, of staying late, of missing precious time with my sick father. 5 years of watching others brazenly take credit for my work. 5 years of just being nice. I stood up. I walked to the bathroom, and I stared at myself in the mirror. My hands were shaking. I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. That was it. That exact, raw, heartbreaking moment when I decided being nice wasn't working anymore. I walked back into that celebration with a strange calm, a quiet power I'd never felt before. It was like watching myself from outside my body. Diane was laughing, loud and boisterous, with the executives about plans for the new division. I walked straight up to her. Tapped her on the shoulder. "I need to speak with you right now," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. She gave me that patronizing smile. "You know the one. The one that says, 'Not now, sweetie, the adults are talking.'" But I didn't move. I just stared at her until her smile faltered. "Fine, Jennifer." "What is it?" she snapped, clear annoyance in her tone. "I think we should discuss this privately," I said. Everyone was looking at us now. She couldn't dismiss me without making a scene, so she followed me to a quiet corner. "What's so urgent that it couldn't wait?" she asked, checking her watch like my time was worthless. "I want to know why Ryan is being moved to the Maxwell team when I created the entire presentation, the research, the pitch, everything." Diane's eyes narrowed, just slightly, before that fake smile plastered itself back on her face. "Jennifer, we've discussed this. It was a team effort, and as your manager, I decided how to allocate the resources." I felt something bubbling inside me. Something hot and unfamiliar. Anger. "I'm not talking about the presentation anymore," I said, my voice rising. "I'm talking about the team assignments for the account I developed. I deserve to be on that team." She actually laughed. A harsh, derisive laugh. Deserving has nothing to do with it. Ryan has the right presence for client-facing roles. You're more of a behind-the-scenes person, Jennifer. And that's where you excel. "Behind the scenes," I repeated, slowly. "Do you mean doing all the work while others take the credit?" Her face hardened. "Watch your tone. This isn't productive. Let's talk when you've calmed down." I didn't realize I was raising my voice until I saw heads turning. "Productive? Like me, staying until midnight working on the Maxwell presentation while you were at your son's basketball game?" Diane stepped closer, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Jennifer, I think you should take the rest of the day off. Clearly, you're not in a professional mindset right now." I almost did it. I almost backed down, apologized, and scurried away like I always did. But then my phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. Dad had been admitted after his fall. More serious than they initially thought. Internal bleeding. I looked up at Diane. "I'm not taking the day off," I said, the words suddenly flowing with a force I didn't know I possessed. "I'm quitting." Her eyes widened. "What?" "I quit. I'm done being your workhorse. I'm done watching you take credit for my ideas. I'm done sacrificing my family for this job where I'm not valued or respected." She switched tactics instantly, her voice softening, syrupy. "Jennifer, don't be hasty. You're upset. I understand, but you're a valuable member of the team." I almost laughed. "That's the first time you've ever said that to me," I pointed out, "is when I'm quitting." People were definitely staring now. One of the executives, Ted Wilson, walked over, looking concerned. "Is everything okay over here?" he asked. "No, it's not," I said, before Diane could even open her mouth. "I've just resigned because I'm tired of having my work stolen by my manager." The entire Maxwell presentation was mine. Every slide, every word, every concept. But Diane presented it as her own. Ted looked surprised. "Jennifer, these are serious accusations." "They're not accusations," I said, feeling strangely powerful. "They're facts. I have the original files on my personal drive with creation dates. I have emails where I sent drafts to Diane. I even have the research notes in my handwriting." Diane's face had gone pale, a sickly white. "This is ridiculous. She's being emotional because of personal issues. Her father is sick, and she's not handling the stress well." That was it. The final, infuriating straw. A flash of pure rage went through me at her using my father's illness against me. I pulled out my phone, opened my email, and forwarded something to Ted's address. "You'll find I just sent you the original presentation with all my notes, including the comments where Diane specifically asked me to remove my name from the presenter section. You'll also find the recording I made of our conversation last month where she told me, and I quote, 'Just do the work and let me handle the client. I need this win for my promotion.'" I hadn't actually planned to send that recording. I'd made it for my own sanity, a desperate attempt to remind myself I wasn't crazy. But now? It felt like divine intervention that I had it. Diane's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Ted checked his phone, his expression changing from concern to something darker as he opened the email. "Jennifer, let's discuss this in my office," he said quietly. I shook my head. "I'm done discussing. I'm done working here. I'm done being nice. I have to go to the hospital. My dad needs me." I turned to walk away. "Wait." Ted called out. "This is concerning information. We need to address this." I looked back at them. Diane's face was a mixture of shock and fury. Ted looked genuinely troubled. "Address it however you want," I said. "I won't be here." As I walked toward the exit, I heard my name being called by several people, but I didn't turn around. I just kept walking, past the shocked faces of coworkers who had never seen nice, accommodating Jennifer stand up for herself. Outside the building, I took a deep breath. It felt like the first real breath I'd taken in 5 years. I got in my car and drove straight to the hospital. Dad was pale against the white sheets, but he smiled when he saw me. "Hey, kiddo, shouldn't you be at work?" I took his hand. "They can manage without me. I'm where I need to be." Over the next few days, while Dad recovered, I got dozens of calls and texts from coworkers. Some expressed shock, others support. A few even shared their own stories of how Diane had taken advantage of their work, too. I ignored most of them, focusing on Dad and what would come next. A week later, while Dad was napping in his hospital room, I finally checked my email. There was a message from Ted Wilson asking me to call in when I had a moment. Curious, I stepped into the hallway and dialed his number. "Jennifer, thank you for calling," he said, sounding genuinely relieved. "I've been hoping to speak with you." "What can I do for you, Ted?" I asked professionally, even though I no longer worked there. "After reviewing the materials you sent and conducting several interviews, we've terminated Diane's employment. Her actions constituted a clear violation of our ethics policy." I hadn't expected that. "Oh," I said, not knowing what else to say. He continued. "We'd like to offer you her position." I nearly dropped the phone. "What?" "The Maxwell team needs a leader. Someone who knows the account inside and out. Someone who did the actual work. That someone is you." I leaned against the wall, trying to process this. The promotion Diane had gotten was now being offered to me. I appreciate the offer, Ted, but I'm not sure I want to come back. There was a pause. Then Ted said, "We're prepared to offer a significant compensation increase, full remote work options for your family situation, and back pay for the bonus Diane received for your work." I thought about Dad, about the medical bills piling up, about the fact that despite everything, I did enjoy the creative aspects of my job, just not the way I'd been treated. What about the company culture that allowed this to happen in the first place? I asked. Why didn't anyone notice or speak up before now? Ted sighed. That's a fair question, and one we're addressing company-wide. We've started a review of all management practices and reporting structures. I won't pretend we didn't fail you, Jennifer, but I'm asking for the chance to make it right. I told him I needed time to think. Would he be open to meeting in person to discuss specific terms? He agreed immediately. That night, I sat beside Dad's bed as he slept, thinking about what to do. Going back seemed impossible after my dramatic exit. But starting over somewhere else during Dad's illness also seemed daunting. Dad woke up and caught me deep in thought. "Penny, for your thoughts?" I told him everything. About Diane, about quitting, about the job offer. He listened carefully, as he always did. When I finished, he asked me, "What do you want to do, sweetie?" "I don't know," I admitted. Part of me wants to go back and show them I can lead without becoming like Diane. Part of me wants to walk away and start fresh. He nodded. Both valid. But let me ask you this. When did you feel most like yourself this past week? I thought about it. When I finally stood up to Diane. When I stopped being a doormat. Exactly, he said. You don't have to decide whether to take the job right now, but whatever you choose, don't go back to being the old Jennifer, the one who let people walk all over her. I met with Ted the next day and laid out my conditions: full remote work flexibility during Dad's treatment, a team of my choosing, and most importantly, a company-wide attribution policy, ensuring people received credit for their work. To my surprise, he agreed to everything. I started my new role the following month, working primarily from Dad's house while he recovered. The team respected me because I respected them. We completed the first phase of the Maxwell project ahead of schedule and under budget. It wasn't always smooth sailing. Some people who had known the old Jennifer tried to take advantage, assuming I'd still be a pushover. They learned quickly that while I was fair, I was no longer a doormat. 6 months later, Dad finished his treatment. The doctors were cautiously optimistic, he was on the mend. I had proven myself as a leader and even received a company-wide innovation award for a new campaign approach. One evening, as I was finishing work, Dad came into the home office I'd set up in his spare room. "You know what I was thinking about today?" he mused. "What's that?" I asked, closing my laptop. "That day at the hospital, when you came in after quitting. There was something different about you. Like a weight had been lifted." I smiled. I remember. He sat down across from me. "Before that day, I was worried about you, more than myself. Worried you were letting life happen to you instead of making choices. It took me getting sick for you to finally put yourself first." Tears pricked my eyes. "I'm sorry it took that long." He reached over and squeezed my hand. "Don't be. We all learn our lessons when we're ready to learn them. I'm just glad you learned this one while I'm still around to see it." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment before he added, "Your mother would be proud of you. She never took crap from anyone either." That made me laugh. Mom certainly wasn't a pushover. Late that night, I found myself thinking about the person I used to be. Always saying yes. Always accommodating everyone else's needs before my own. I didn't hate that person. She was kind and well-intentioned, but she was also afraid. Afraid of conflict, afraid of disapproval, afraid of standing alone. The woman I'd become wasn't fearless, but she faced her fears. She set boundaries. She demanded respect. And strangely enough, she received it far more often than the woman who had begged for it. The following week, I received an email from Ryan, of all people. He'd been reassigned after I took over and was now working under another manager who apparently made Diane look positively angelic in comparison. The email was asking if I had any openings on my team. He'd heard I was a fair boss who gave credit where it was due. I stared at the email for a long time, thinking about how desperate I had been for recognition, how I would have jumped at any chance to work for someone who valued me. Part of me wanted to ignore the email, to let him feel what I had felt. But that wasn't who I wanted to be either. Nice didn't mean being a pushover, but it also didn't mean being vindictive. I replied, offering him an interview. Not promising anything, but giving him the chance I wished someone had given me. Dad saw the email over my shoulder as he brought me coffee. "You're a better person than I am," he chuckled. I'd have told him to kick rocks. I laughed. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. But I know I can be kind without being a doormat. Now I decide where my boundaries are. Not everyone else. Exactly, he said, raising his coffee mug in a toast. To boundaries. And to the daughter who finally found hers. I clinked my mug against his. To boundaries, I echoed. And to not confusing kindness with weakness. It had been a long journey from the woman crying in the bathroom mirror to the leader sitting confidently in her home office. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. Not even for the comfortable invisibility of always being nice. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to stop being so nice to everyone else. It doesn't mean becoming cruel. It just means making room for your own needs alongside others. And that moment in the bathroom, when I decided being nice wasn't working anymore? It wasn't the end of kindness. It was the beginning of self-respect. And remarkably, those two things could exist side by side, if you were brave enough to make space for both. 2 years later, I'm still at Davidson Media, now as a director. I built a team that's known for both excellence and ethics. We credit each contributor by name on every project, large or small. We've become the division everyone wants to work for. Dad's cancer is in remission. He's taken up golf and complains constantly about his swing. He comes to the office holiday party each year and tells embarrassing stories about me. Last month, Diane applied for a position in my department. She didn't recognize my married name on the job posting. When she walked in for the interview and saw me, her face went through about 5 emotions in 3 seconds. I conducted the interview professionally, asked relevant questions, and thanked her for her time. I didn't hire her. Not out of revenge, but because there were better candidates. People who valued collaboration and integrity. As she was leaving, she paused at the door. "You've changed, Jennifer." I smiled. "Yes, I have. Thank you for noticing." She looked confused. "You're thanking me?" "In a way, yes. If you hadn't pushed me to my breaking point, I might never have found my strength. So, in a strange way, you helped me become who I needed to be." She didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded and left. That night, I told Dad about the interview. He roared with laughter, slapping his knee. The look on her face must have been priceless. It was, I admitted. But you know what's funny? I actually meant what I said to her. I am grateful, in a weird way. He nodded sagely. Sometimes our worst moments lead to our best decisions. I think about that bathroom mirror moment often, the tear-streaked face, the shaking hands, the absolute certainty that something had to change. It was rock bottom. But it was also the foundation I built everything else on. So when people ask me the moment I decided being nice wasn't working anymore, I tell them it wasn't about stopping being nice. It was about starting to be nice to myself, too. And that has made all the difference.